Hello everyone, welcome to online machine learning sessions. In today's session, we will have a detailed look on regression. So we will start from the very beginning, from the basic definition of regression, and then we will go into more complex details. We will also discuss some examples so that you can have a clear understanding of the regression, and then we will also look into the two types of regression, which is linear regression and the logistic regression. And we will also see that what are the situations and what are the circumstances under which we need to use linear regression, and what does the limitation of linear regression, and when do we need to switch from linear regression to logistic regression. So this session is all about regression, starting from the very beginning to some advanced level examples, and we will be discussing both types of regression, linear regression and the logistic regression. So let's start from the key concept of regression. So in the first part of this section, we will try to find the equation of the straight line, which I think most of you have already known about the equation of a straight line. So the basic target is to find the equation of a straight line that best fits the paired sample data, right? So in regression, we will mainly be working with the paired sample data. So the data samples will be occurring in pair, and our target or objective will be to find an equation for a line, for a straight line that best fits that paired sample data. That equation algebraically describes the relationship between two variables, right? So the equation which we are trying to figure out, the equation of the straight line, that basically describes the relationship between two variables, right? So we have two variables. For example, you can say that we have one variable x and we have another variable y. So the equation which we are trying to figure out will describe the relationship between x and y, right? So one will be changing because of the other, so you can say that we are dealing with some independent variables and we are also dealing some dependent variables here. The best fitting straight line is called a regression line. So the equation for the straight line which best fits the paired sample data, that line is basically the regression line, right? And the equation for that line is called the regression equation. Okay, so the target is to find the a straight line and to determine the equation for that straight line, but the condition is that straight line should best fit the sampled pair data, and we will say that the straight line is the regression line and the equation for that straight line is the regression equation. So what is simple linear regression? Linear equation, so given a collection of paired sample data, as I described before, the regression equation that algebraically describes the relationship between the two variables x and y can be given with this equation, right? So we have an equation here which is written as y is equals to b naught or b0 plus b1 x. It means that this equation basically tries to algebraically define the relationship between two variables here which are x and y. So one variable is x and the other variable is y, and this equation is describing the relationship between these two variables, and we are saying that this is the regression equation. The regression equation attempts to describe a relationship between two variables. Inherently, the equation algebraically describes how the values of one variable are somehow associated with the values of the other variable. So there is a connection or a direct connection between the values of both these variables x and y. So due to some instances, for some occurrences, the value of one variable might be increasing and the value of the other variable might be decreasing, or on the other hand, it also can be a possible case that the values of both the variables are increasing. So in short, we can say that this line basically describes the relationship between two values of two variables, and somehow the values of these two variables are associated with each other. The value of one variable will be associated with the value of other variable. Now, this was the regression equation. The regression line is the graph of the regression equation. So if I draw a line from this regression equation, then that line will basically be the regression line, but the only condition is that this line should be the best fit line, and we can say that this line is the least square line. The regression line fits the sample points best. So the ultimate target for a regression line is that it should best fit the paired sample data or the total sample points. So these are some of the notations that we will be using in this lecture for linear regression as well as the logistic regression. So we have, as you already know, that in statistics, in simple statistics, for the equation of line, you might also come across from for intercept, slope, and their equation, right? So we are denoting the population parameter for intercept as beta naught or beta 0, and for sample statistics we are representing it as b naught. Similarly, the slope is being represented as beta 1 and b1, and by using slope and intercept we can define the equation as y is equals to beta naught plus beta 1x, and for sample statistics we can write it as y hat is equals to b naught plus b1x. So you will note here that the variable y, this variable y, is the sample regression equation, right? So we have this sample regression equation here, and this sample regression equation involves intercept as well as slope. This implies that we are predicting something because we have some independent and the dependent variables here. So we are trying to predict the values through this equation. We are predicting value of y. So from this equation you can see that we are trying to figure out the value of y, and this value of y will be based upon the values of x, right? So we have the value of y which is directly dependent on the value of x. So now let's have a look on the requirements of simple regression equation, that what are the requirements which we need to fulfill if we want to apply simple linear regression equation for some problem. So number one requirement is that the sample of paired data is a simple random sample of quantitative data. So the number one condition is that the type of the data set should be quantitative, right? We should only be dealing with the quantitative data, and we should have sampled paired data, right? So we are having data set in pairs. So all the samples of the quantitative data will be occurring in pair, and it will be a simple random sample. Number second condition is that the pairs of the data xy, for example, I am denoting my quantitative data here with xy, then the pairs of data xy have a bivariate normal distribution. So the data should be distributed with bivariate normal distribution. It means these following two conditions. Number one is that visual examination of scatter plots confirms that the sample points follow an approximately straight line. So if I look visually on the scatter plot of my data, then it should confirm that all the sample points related to this data should follow an approximate straight line, right? So if I draw a scatter plot out of my data, then it should be in a shape, or it should be in a form that by visually looking into that scatter plot, I could observe that a single straight line will approximately best fit this data. The second thing is that because results can be strongly affected by the presence of outliers, any outliers should be removed if they are known to be errors. So if by looking at the scatter plot, if we see that there are some outliers present in the data. So outlier is basically an instance which is basically not related to the remaining data sample. So it could be occurring due to some kind of noise, so it could strongly affect the results. So we need to remove those outliers because they could be generated to be some kind of known errors.